He's with Elon Musk, Kid Rock, and other supporters. He also waved at the crowd. Meanwhile, there are new revelations and concerns about his cabinet picks. The attorney for Trump's defense secretary pick, Pete Hegseth, says the former Fox anchor did pay a woman who accused him of sexual assault, but he says the 2017 incident in Monterey was a, quote, consensual sexual encounter.
And despite widespread unease on Capitol Hill, the president-elect is pushing ahead with his decision to nominate former Representative Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Lawmakers and allies warn Gaetz faces an uphill fight for confirmation. With us now is CNN's Daniel Strauss. So let's start with the allegations involving Pete Hegseth and how this will affect his chances of confirmation.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not ideal for the Trump team and the Trump transition team. This was, for the incoming president, one of the more knee-jerk nominations he had, and it took the Department of Defense and really the larger defense community by surprise. In that situation, any president would want sterling credentials and a resume that could survive even an early level of scrutiny, and that doesn't seem to be the case here. So already, Hegseth, who is not an obvious choice for this job, seems to have an even more steeper climb to confirmation.
And what about Matt Gaetz? I mean, he's obviously a provocative choice. There has been some skepticism expressed by some Republican senators as well. What's the likelihood of him getting the confirmation as Attorney General?
I mean, there is plenty of skepticism, and at this point, you have to remember that it's not just Democrats who really, really don't like Gaetz. It's Republicans as well. I mean, the last caucus leader of the Republican Party, Kevin McCarthy, reviles him and has been active in trying to counter any momentum and any leadership this congressman, has had nationwide. And so an upcoming, before Gaetz was announced as Trump's pick, there was a scheduled ethics report that was going to be released about him. Now there's even more scrutiny and interest in that report in light of his nomination.
All right, Daniel Strauss, appreciate it. Thank you. President Biden will travel to Brazil today on the next leg of his South American tour, following a meeting on the sidelines of the APEC summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping. White House officials described the meeting as candid, constructive, and wide-ranging.
The president raised concerns about Taiwan, trade, and the deployment of North Korean troops in Ukraine. But the election and the incoming Trump administration really loomed large over the discussions. CNN's Kayla Tausche is in Lima traveling with the president. So this was likely the last meeting between these two world leaders. Tell us what we know.
Well, it was the third and final meeting between Presidents Biden and Xi Jinping. It lasted nearly 2 hours, and they discussed a variety of issues, some of which you mentioned. China's support of Russia on the battlefield in Ukraine, cyber espionage, as well as the economic competition between the two countries. But National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan made it clear that President Biden signaled that the next 2 months are a period of transition for the United States with an incoming administration. He said that he wasn't going to front-run the new administration policies toward China, which are still in formation, but made it clear that he wanted to hand over the relationship on stable terms. Now, that was a theme of the meeting. They wanted to focus on the stability between the two nations over the course of the last 4 years. President Biden has worked, he said, to try to stabilize the relationship, to keep from competition spilling over, veering into conflict between these two global superpowers. And while at times that has seemed an impossible task, that was really what they focused on. They had an expanded team of both of their bilateral officials working on some of these issues, ranging from climate to trade to more military-focused issues. And they tried to focus on keeping military-level communication to discussing some other things they worked on. But it was very clear, Sullivan said, that this was a meeting to try to tie up the relationship, to try to bookend the discussions that they've had over the last 4 years. So we will see whether that works and whether China decides to